Emily Carter sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the dim glow of the streetlights outside her bedroom window. The house was silent, the kind of silence that made her chest ache. It had been quiet like this ever since the divorce. The rooms once filled with laughter now felt like they belonged to strangers. She had tried to fill the quiet with work, with chores, with anything that distracted her from the empty space inside her heart. But tonight, the silence pressed against her more heavily than usual. And she felt restless. She reached for her phone, scrolling aimlessly through notifications, but nothing caught her attention. Her eyes felt heavy, and she was about to put the phone down when a soft, hesitant knock echoed from the bedroom door. Emily froze. It was almost imperceptible, but in the stillness of the night it sounded louder than it should. "Mom." A small voice whispered. Her heart skipped a beat. She didn't expect anyone to be awake. Noah, her 16-year-old son, had a strict bedtime. Yet here he was, standing quietly on the other side of the door. She felt a wave of both concern and curiosity rush through her. She had always known her son to be thoughtful, even mature for his age. But this tone-soft, hesitant, nervous was something new. Emily sat up straighter, smoothing the covers, and called softly, "Yes, honey." "What is it?" The door creaked open slowly, and Noah stepped into the room. He looked tired, the shadows under his eyes deep, but there was a seriousness about him that made Emily's chest tighten. He wasn't just a boy seeking comfort, he seemed to be carrying something heavy. I just wanted to talk," he said quietly, his hands fidgeting at his sides. "Can I sit with you?" Emily nodded, moving to the side of the bed. Noah climbed onto the mattress and perched on the edge as though unsure whether he belonged there. He glanced at her, and she saw the vulnerability in his gaze. "I heard you crying earlier," he began, his voice calm but filled with concern. "I thought maybe you didn't want me to notice, but I do." Emily felt a lump rise in her throat. She hadn't realized he had noticed. She had tried so hard to hide her loneliness, her quiet moments of despair. For months, she had carried the weight of her own heartbreak alone, assuming her son was too young to understand. But here he was, proving her wrong. "I didn't mean to," she whispered, her voice trembling. Sometimes it's hard, you know?" Noah nodded, as though he understood more than she could imagine. "I know," he said simply. "I've seen you trying to be strong for me. I've seen you putting on a brave face every day. But it's okay to let yourself feel sad too. You don't always have to be strong." Emily looked at him, her heart swelling with emotion. This boy, barely 16, was offering her a wisdom she didn't know she needed. She thought back to the long days she had spent alone in the house, cooking meals for two, working, cleaning, doing everything to maintain a sense of normalcy. She thought about the nights when she sat alone on the couch, staring at the muted television, fighting back tears. She thought about the walls she had built around her heart, believing that love and happiness were no longer meant for her. And now, her son was telling her it was okay to break those walls down. Noah's gaze was steady, unwavering. "Mom, I don't want you to be lonely," he said softly. "You think I'm growing up and don't need you, but I do. I notice everything. Your smiles, your frowns, even when you think I'm not looking." Emily's eyes filled with tears she could no longer hold back. She reached out and took his hand, squeezing it gently. I don't want to mess things up for you," she said. "I've made so many mistakes, Noah. I don't want you to feel hurt because of me." He shook his head, his small hand warm in hers. "You're not hurting me. You're helping me. You're showing me that it's okay to feel, it's okay to care, it's okay to let people in. You think you're protecting me, but you've been teaching me all along." The words hit Emily harder than she expected. She realized that in trying to be a perfect parent, she had neglected her own heart. She had spent so long worrying about protecting Noah that she had forgotten to protect herself from loneliness, from sadness, from shutting out life's possibilities. Noah leaned back slightly, his eyes searching hers. "Mom, you deserve happiness too," he said simply. "Even if it's scary, even if it's new, even if it means taking a chance." Emily felt a rush of emotions, relief, surprise, gratitude, and a strange fluttering she hadn't felt in years. She had always associated love with pain, with the heartbreak of the past. But here, in the quiet darkness of the night, she saw another possibility. A life where she could be happy again, without shame, without guilt. She swallowed hard, her throat tight. I I don't even know where to start," she admitted. "It's been so long since I allowed myself to feel. Anything beyond work and taking care of you?" Oh. Noah smiled softly, that small, knowing smile that made Emily's heart ache in the best way. "Start by noticing the little things," he said. "Notice what makes you happy. Notice what you miss. Notice the people who care about you. And maybe, just maybe, notice yourself too." Emily laughed softly, a laugh that felt like it had been trapped for years. It wasn't the easy laughter of joy, but it was real, and it was warm. She realized that her son, this young man who had grown so quickly in the past few years, was guiding her back to life, back to herself. The night stretched on as they talked, quietly, softly, about small things and big things. Noah shared stories from school, stories about his friends, his hopes, his fears. Emily listened, sometimes giving advice, sometimes just holding space for him to speak. And in between the words, a deeper connection grew, a bond strengthened not just by family, but by honesty, by trust, by love that had been unspoken for too long. Hours seemed to pass like minutes. Emily felt lighter than she had in months. She realized that this night, this quiet moment with her son, was more than a conversation. It was a turning point. It was a reminder that life could still be beautiful, that hearts could still heal, and that love didn't have to end with pain. Noah yawned, rubbing his eyes, and Emily helped him back to his bed. She tucked him in, her hands lingering on his shoulders for a moment longer than usual. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" He mumbled, already half asleep. "For being brave enough to talk to me," she said softly. "For reminding me that it's okay to feel, to care, to hope." He smiled in his sleep, and Emily closed the door quietly behind her, her heart full. She sat on the edge of her bed for a few more minutes, letting the silence of the house wash over her, not as an emptiness, but as a canvas ready to be filled again with warmth, laughter, and maybe even love. That night, Emily realized something profound. Life didn't always announce its lessons loudly. Sometimes the most important lessons came in whispers, in gentle knocks at midnight, in the soft voices of the people we love most. And sometimes it took the wisdom of a child to remind us of what we had almost forgotten, the courage to live fully, to open our hearts, to embrace happiness again. And as she finally turned off the bedside lamp and lay down, Emily felt a strange sense of hope. She didn't know what the future held. She didn't know when or how love would come back into her life, or whether it would look the way she imagined. But she knew one thing for certain. She would no longer face the night alone. And she would no longer be afraid to let life in. She drifted off to sleep with the soft echo of her son's voice in her mind. A quiet promise that sometimes change arrives not in grand gestures, but in the tender courage of those we least expect. The morning sunlight spilled through the kitchen window, painting the room in warm, golden tones. Emily Carter leaned against the counter, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee, feeling the weight of the night before. Noah had gone to school hours ago, and the house was quiet again, but it no longer felt empty. The conversation they had shared, the one that had begun with a knock at midnight, lingered in her mind like a soft melody she couldn't forget. She thought about Noah's words. Being strong doesn't mean giving up on happiness. That simple sentence had struck a chord she hadn't realized was still there. Emily had spent years building walls around her heart. After her divorce, she told herself that love was a chapter she had already lived and lost. Romance felt like something she had boxed up, something too complicated to touch again. And yet, her son had reminded her that life was not meant to be lived behind walls. Her thoughts drifted to Daniel Brooks, her old college friend who had reappeared in her life a few months ago. Their interactions had been subtle at first, text messages that made her smile, phone calls filled with laughter, shared memories that sparked warmth in her chest. There was a comfort in his presence, a sense of understanding that Emily hadn't realized she missed so desperately. But she had been cautious. She had feared that letting herself care for someone again might confuse, Noah or disrupt the fragile routine she had built for him. Asterisk, yet last night, Noah had changed everything. He had seen the small joys, the hints of a smile when she thought no one was watching. And he had gently encouraged her to embrace them. His words made her feel guilty and hopeful all at once. How had a 16-year-old seen so clearly what she herself had ignored? Emily set her coffee down and ran her fingers over the counter. She thought about the afternoons she had spent alone scrolling through social media, watching families gather, couples laugh, wondering if she would ever allow herself that kind of happiness again. And now her son had given her permission without even knowing he had done it. Her phone buzzed on the counter, and her heart skipped a beat. It was Daniel. She stared at the screen, a mix of excitement and nervousness washing over her. For months, she had avoided these moments, convincing herself that reaching out could complicate everything. But Noah's words from the night before echoed in her mind. Life doesn't wait forever. She typed a simple message. Want to meet for a walk this afternoon? And hesitated for a moment before hitting send. Almost immediately, a reply appeared. I'd love that. Meet by the lake at 4. Emily felt a small thrill of anticipation. The lake was peaceful, a place she and Daniel had always enjoyed during college days, where conversations flowed naturally and the world outside seemed to pause. The hours before the meeting passed in a blur. Emily kept busy tidying up the house, checking emails, making sure Noah's homework was organized. Her mind kept wandering. She imagined what it would be like to see Daniel again, to talk, to laugh, to feel that spark she hadn't acknowledged in months. The anticipation made her heart race. A feeling she realized she had missed more than she wanted to admit. At 4 o'clock, she arrived at the lake. Daniel was already there, leaning against the railing, looking casual in jeans and a light jacket. His smile widened when he saw her, and Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest. They exchanged greetings, and for a moment it felt as though no time had passed at all. Conversation flowed easily, just like it used to. Yet there was a subtle tension beneath it, a shared understanding that life had moved on, that they had both changed, and that opening their hearts again might be both terrifying and wonderful. They walked along the path beside the lake, talking about everything and nothing. Daniel asked about Noah, about work, about how she had been since college. Emily answered honestly, sharing small victories, challenges, and moments of quiet reflection. As they walked, she realized how much she had missed this kind of connection, the ease of laughter, the comfort of someone who knew you, and the thrill of discovering new layers in an old friendship. At one point, they paused by a bench overlooking the water. The sunlight shimmered on the surface, and Emily felt a sense of calm she hadn't experienced in years. Daniel turned to her, his expression gentle but serious. "Emily," he said softly, "I've noticed something. You've been carrying so much for so long, and yet you still find ways to care for everyone around you. It's remarkable." Emily looked down, feeling a flush rise to her cheeks. "I've tried," she admitted. "Sometimes I think I've done it too well. I focus so much on others that I forget to care for myself." Daniel reached out and lightly touched her hand. "It's okay to care for yourself. You deserve happiness. You've earned it." The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. Emily realized how long it had been since someone had looked at her this way, not just as a friend, but as someone worthy of love, someone whose feelings mattered. It was a gentle reminder that life could still hold joy even after heartbreak, even after years of solitude. As they continued their walk, Emily found herself opening up about fears she had kept hidden, fears of failure, of being hurt again, of not being enough. Daniel listened, without judgment, without rushing, giving her the space to speak and the comfort of being understood. His presence was steady, reassuring, a quiet anchor in the storm of her emotions. They talked about love, not the fleeting kind she had experienced in the past, but something deeper, something patient and respectful. Daniel spoke about second chances, about how life sometimes offers opportunities we aren't ready to accept until the right moment. Emily listened, realizing that perhaps this was her moment, the one she had been avoiding. Out of fear or habit, the afternoon slipped into evening. and the sky transformed into shades of pink and orange. The lake reflected the colors, creating a scene so beautiful it almost felt unreal. Emily felt her heart lighten with every step, every word, every shared laugh. She realized that this moment of connection, of understanding, of gentle excitement was what she had been missing. When it was time to leave, they walked back to their cars in silence. Not out of discomfort, but out of a shared understanding that some moments were best left unspoken, experienced fully in the quiet. Daniel looked at her, his eyes soft, and said, "I'm glad we did this." Emily smiled, a real unguarded smile, and nodded. "Me too," she replied. The drive home was quiet, but Emily felt a lightness she hadn't felt in years. She thought about Noah and how he had encouraged her in his simple, honest way to embrace life again. She realized that her son had given her more than advice. He had given her permission to hope, to feel, to take risks with her own happiness. When she walked into the house, the soft glow of the hallway light greeted her. She paused for a moment, listening to the familiar sounds of the home. It was quiet, yes, but it no longer felt empty. She thought about the conversations with Daniel, about the possibilities that lay ahead, and about the courage it took to step beyond fear. Later, that night, Emily sat on her bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day in her mind. She thought about the lake, about the warmth of Daniel's hand, about the honesty in his voice. And she thought about Noah, the boy who had grown into a wise, perceptive young man who had reminded her that life was not over, that love was not lost, and that she was worthy of happiness. A sense of hope settled over her, gentle but persistent. She realized that life didn't have to be about surviving. It could be about living fully, feeling deeply, and embracing the moments that made the heart beat faster. And as she drifted off to sleep that night, Emily made a quiet promise to herself. She would not let fear dictate her choices. She would honor the lessons her son had taught her, the opportunities that life had presented, and the possibility that love, true, respectful, beautiful love could find her again, because sometimes the heart needed a nudge, a gentle reminder from the people who loved you most. To rediscover the courage it had forgotten, Dot and Emily Carter, for the first time in years, felt ready to take that step. The morning sunlight spilled across the kitchen floor, filling Emily Carter's home with a warmth that felt almost tangible. For the first time in months, the quiet didn't feel heavy or empty. It felt alive. The conversation with Noah and the walk with Daniel the day before had shifted something deep within her, a subtle, persistent sense that life could be full again, even after heartbreak. Emily leaned against the counter, her coffee cup cradled in both hands. She replayed everything in her mind. Noah's gentle honesty, the way he had noticed her small smiles, the way he had reminded her that happiness didn't need permission to exist. And then Daniel, the easy laughter, the soft concern in his voice, the way his presence made her heart feel lighter. For the first time in a long while, Emily realized that the world hadn't closed off to her. She had only forgotten how to see it clearly. Noah bounded down the stairs, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his energy filling the room. "Good morning, Mom," he chirped, his usual grin bright and unbothered. Emily smiled, warmth spreading in her chest as she watched him grab a piece of toast from the counter. She remembered the night before, his small, brave voice encouraging her to embrace life again. "You should call him," Noah said casually between bites, as if he hadn't just spent an entire night being the most insightful person in the world. "Life doesn't wait forever." Emily laughed softly, shaking her head. His tone was nonchalant, but she could feel the weight of his words lingering. He didn't push or lecture. He simply gave her permission, quietly, without judgment. That was Noah, observant, caring, and sometimes wiser than most adults she knew. By mid-morning, Emily made the decision. She picked up her phone, her fingers hovering over the screen for a brief moment before finally typing the message she had been hesitant to send for weeks. "Can we meet this evening? I'd like to talk." Within moments, Daniel replied, "Of course. Same place." She smiled, feeling a flutter of excitement that surprised her. The hours passed in a blur. Emily tidied the house, organized Noah's homework, and kept herself busy. But her mind constantly drifted to the lake, to Daniel's smile, to the feeling of connection she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. She realized how much she had missed this, the anticipation, the warmth, the simple yet profound excitement of someone noticing you in a way that mattered. By late afternoon, she arrived at the lake, the place where the past and present seemed to meet. Daniel was already there, leaning against the railing, scanning the water as though waiting for her. When he saw her approach, his face lit up, and Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest. They greeted each other with a small hug, gentle but meaningful, and began walking along the familiar path. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of the lake and the subtle rustle of leaves. Emily noticed the way Daniel listened, not just hearing her words, but truly understanding them. There was no rush, no expectation, just presence and patience, and a shared understanding that this moment mattered.